What I have here is a Craftsman 18-inch chainsaw. It's gas powered. First thing I'm going to do is remove these two nuts. Now I'm pulling the cover off. Harder to do one-handed. The cover is off. This is interesting. It looks like the clutch housing has been scraping against this band and overheated the metal band and melted the plastic here a little bit. Here's a better look at it. And look at the wear point on the metal band. We have to do something about that. The problem that I discovered is this part is too close to the hub as it's spinning. It doesn't affect the chain brake. When that closes, this wraps around completely. But when it's open and full freewheel, the hub scrapes right here. And I don't know if you can see, it has overheated it and melted it. The next thing we're going to do is disassemble this chain brake housing and make a little more clearance so that this band on this side isn't touching the clutch wheel as it's spinning. The next thing was to clean this up a little bit, make it more accessible so you could see all the screws to take this apart. Because what I have to do is take this band out. I'm going to take a Dremel tool and grind a little bit of this plastic away so it's got more clearance. On this side you can see where it's wearing. It should not be in contact with that pulley at all while the chain is freewheeling. So we're going to just relieve a little bit of the black plastic behind this and give it some more clearance. This is in the lock position, and as you can see, the strap has more space here than when it's released. So it'll pull around even if I make this bigger, because this is what pinches. This pinches on it, and then it floats to whatever position to center it. So now what I'm going to try and do is remove this screw and see if I can get this loop that this screw is holding, pull it out, and then work this over so I can hit this with a Dremel tool. Okay, well that didn't work. So now I'm going to be taking this entire assembly here and lifting it off so I can get this band out. The next thing I've done is unhooked this spring from this ear and took the E-clip, and that's an E-clip right there. Took that off so I can lift this plate off. Next I'll be removing this lever arm by taking this washer and the retainer clip and the spring and pulling this pin out. Removing that rubber washer, exposed an E-clip. Okay, so there are all the parts for the handle. The pin came in from the bottom, then the spring, then the flat silver washer, the E-clip, and a rubber washer. The next thing I'm going to do is remove these two screws and take this metal plate and the adjusting screw out, because it looks like it's covering up the plate underneath there. This cover was holding down this spring, which had tremendous force on it. So it's going to be a trick to get it back in. Here you see underneath. Now you can see why I couldn't pull that out. Okay, I have the band out. Obviously I have material accumulated behind it, but you can see how it's melted in a little bit. I've cleaned a little more. You can see how much melting there was here. Next, I used a box knife to trim the ridge on the outer side. And you can see at the bottom how much of a shoulder has melted in already. For effect, you can see what I was doing. I just using a attachment, a sanding drum attachment on the Dremel tool. Just went back and forth, knocked off the lower ridge, and then worked on some more clearance. And smoothed it out, and I took out a little bit more material. It's a little thinner than it was, but still gonna hold the band in place. I don't know if you can see, but it's still holding tight right through here. So I'm going to be removing a little bit more of the plastic right through here. Just to the naked eye, it appears more round here instead of egg-shaped, flattened on this side. So as you can see, I've trimmed back this plastic to give this band a little more clearance so it doesn't rub on the pulley when the brake is released. With this rocker blade in the clamped position, that moved this yoke that was engaged into the spring so that there was more room to push this spring in. And then I pushed with a screwdriver and pushed it forward, blocking this up against my vise so it wouldn't slide, and then got this pushed down in so I can put this cover plate back on. Got the cover plate back on and put the screws in. As I dismantled it, this spring was so taut, I didn't have this released. Didn't realize it would create more pressure, and it popped up and that screw went somewhere. So I found a matching screw. It's just a white head, and put it here, put the original 3 in this location. Reinstall this cover and its 2 screws. When putting the arm back on, note the spring has to protrude through on the other side of that white piece. E-clip and washer in place, and now the rubber washer. Finished installing this cam thing, the E-clip, and its spring. I just used a vice grips, grabbed hold of it, swung it over, and hooked it on this little finger right here. So there it is assembled. Right now it's in the freewheel position. It's going to take 2. Now it's in the clamp position. So you can see that it doesn't matter because it's going to center itself on the wheel. So I'm going to set that aside, do a little chain sharpening, and come back to it in a little bit. The chain is sharpened, and I've threaded the chain over the sprocket and drum, or wheel, whatever you want to call it. Just want to make sure that the chain is engaged in the sprocket and not off to the side. The bar is in place. The chain is over the sprocket tip. A convenient tip, if you have different chains, they stretch at different rates. So I just change from one chain to the other. And you can see the alignment hole for the alignment pin with relation to these 2 studs and the 2 holes in the cover. Well, the other chain, it was way up here, so I quick adjusted it and get it a rough eyeball. See, it goes right on. The nuts are loose. I'm just going to take a screwdriver and start tightening. But I'm not very good left-handed. And pull the tension up until this chain is snug. And then tighten these 2 bolts. Here you can see the chain is snug, and I've got the wrench on the nuts to tighten them up. This little red mark here is just a reference that I paint on when I sharpen chains so I know where to start and where to finish. Okay, here you see